Hello everyone, I'm Fire, and as we approach this end of the year 2021, we're trying something just a little bit different. Every year I play a lot of games and I make a lot of clips for games, but I don't ever get a chance to talk about them to people in the way I'd kind of like to. So in addition to everything else I put out at the end of the year, we're trying something different, and we're going to do a mini game review / overview of everything I've played this year and kind of what I thought about them. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. The first game I played this year was Grim Fandango. Grim Fandango is a puzzle game with a great sense of humor and a horrible control scheme. Although, that's because I was just playing on tank controls for this dumb achievement. Thanks, Tim. In it, you play as Manny Calavera, a soul trying to travel across the afterlife to reach whatever comes next, but is blocked at every point by the most dangerous monster known to man: capitalism. It's an old game, and it definitely shows its age in its controls and lack of navigation, but if you could stick with it, there's some genuinely great dialogue and character writing in here.
Thanks.
Gets the aggressions out, doesn't it?
The next game I played is Wilmont's Warehouse, which is fun because it's like a game modeled after my own brain. Well, that and Arthur Conan Doyle's attic theory.
I've always believed the human brain is like an attic, storage space, facts. But because that space is finite, it must be filled only with the things one needs to be the best version of oneself.
The game is all about playing Wilmont the Square and organizing your warehouse in such a way that you can find and retrieve anything you need in a pinch, which starts easy when your warehouse is empty, but it gets harder and harder as you get more in stock. It's a fun little game for squares like me and Wilmont. Just don't tell your friends you're playing it unless you want to get mocked endlessly for playing a game about organizing. If you don't want your friends to think you're a square, tell them you played My Friend Pedro instead, a game all about guns and explosions and other things I assume cool kids are into. I don't know. Besides just being fun because it's got great action, My Friend Pedro is brilliant because it knows the exact speed at which to ramp up the excitement. You start with your pistol and you're like, okay, this is cool. And then just as you're starting to get bored, they introduce new guns like SMGs and environmental shit like zip lines and explosives. As soon as you're about to get bored of that, boom, shotgun. Bored of that, boom, sniper. Bored, now you can fly, boom. Still in enough motorcycle highway chase scene. Literally, it doesn't get more video gamey than this. And I mean that in the most affectionate way possible. Now who's the square, Sean? God. Speaking of friends, if you have any, I highly recommend playing A Way Out. It's probably the most basic game ever made in terms of writing, characters, gameplay, and plot. But the magic of it is that is what makes it the perfect game to play with a duo partner and make fun of. I've played a lot of multiplayer games with my friend AK, who lives across the country, so we don't see each other in person, and a lot of them are pretty meh, and about the same experience solo as with a friend. But A Way Out was tailor-made for you and your best friend, and is full of mini competitions, stupid shit to do, and team-building exercises.
Whoa! Fucking let me fall!
Goodbye!
So when I say this is probably the best multiplayer game we've played in a while, I really mean it. On the total opposite side of multiplayer action, we have Gris, which is an emotional single-player experience. Gris is weird because Gris is one of those games that was tailor-made for me to like it, but I somehow managed to hate anyways. It's a game that explores grief and depression through colors, animation, and gameplay in a way we've seen before, but never quite this beautifully. But I think that was my biggest beef with the game. It was pretty nothingness. Its messages and exploration of depression were all incredibly basic. There was nothing about the level design that was new or transformative or platformers at all. And by the time the gameplay finally got enough nuance to be interesting, I was on the last chapter of the game and basically done. I mean, Gris definitely deserves some praise for its visuals, but beyond that, no, sorry. Jumping back into multiplayer games, Valorant is a game that I was honestly scared to play. As a very apparent combination of Overwatch and CSGO, two games with famously toxic communities and FPS-obsessed fanboys, I wasn't interested in going anywhere near it. But it was a free-to-play game, and one night I had a bunch of friends jump on who needed a fourth, so, like a good friend, I caved to peer pressure and said yes. Thankfully, a lot of the stuff I was worried about with Valorant, like the toxic community and me being bad, isn't really a problem when you're 5-stacking with people you're already chill with. So I had a good time. I still can't play too much in one sitting, or I start tilting, a remnant of my Overwatch days, but in short bursts with friends, it's been a really good experience. After playing so many new games like the ones listed above, I think I was finally getting tired of the ups and downs of testing new content, and I wanted to go back to what I already knew and loved. So I opted to return to my newest, weirdest obsession, Yakuza. The new year had brought Yakuza 3 to Game Pass, finally, and after months away, boy howdy, was I excited to get back to Kamurocho. But I had keenly forgotten that my boy Kiryu was retired, and rather than returning to Kamurocho, had set sails to the island paradise of Animal Crossing New Horizons. I mean Okinawa. But of course, being Kiryu, it was only a matter of time before the Yakuza life caught up to him. Personally, I think the game spent a little too long in Okinawa, and especially once the story kicked in, all the miscellaneous stuff with the orphanage kids they had us do on the island really started to feel like filler. Except the revelations were dope as fuck, that I'll say. However predictable the story was, though, I was grateful when it finally let us return to Kamurocho and get us back on the streets running, fighting, and awkwardly clapping our way through city nightlife. And all the new characters they added were good too. Rikia, Mikio, Shigeru. It was nice seeing Kiryu form all these deep familiar bonds with people after so much loss in his life. Geez, I sure hope nothing happens to him. Well, shit. After all the unbridled fun of Yakuza 3, I was ready for something with a much lighter tone. So I sat back, turned on some tunes, cracked open a cold can of dating sim with Arcade Spirits. Now, between you and me, I've played my fair share of visual novel dating sims to varying degrees of quality and replayability, and I went into Arcade Spirits with pretty low expectations, but it surprised me by how good it was. The romance choices are diverse and all cute as candy, the story actually had some kick with actual meaningful choices, and the writing was actually tight and well done. Personally, I think they lean a little bit too hard into the 20XX future thing where they block out the year number for no reason to make it seem mysterious and timeless, but there's genuinely a lot of good content here, especially if you like games or old school arcades. Also, Percy's the best romance choice hands down, sorry not sorry. After the slow, chill vibes of Arcade Spirits, I immediately felt the itch to get back to a AAA game, because I'm a consumerist pig who grew up on big-budget FPS games. But in the interest of clearing out my backlog, instead of cracking open a fresh new AAA game with the boys, I decided to give Hitman a shot. Despite having played like most major stealth games, somehow the entire Hitman series just flew right past me over the years, and I never really had any interest or means to play it until the original Hitman went free with Xbox Gold and my stepdad hit me with a hearty "play it, it's good." So, play it I did, and good it was. I was really impressed by Hitman's big open levels and creative scenarios and all their options for how to kill your target. The disguise system was also a really fun mechanic I feel really helps it stand out from other games, though it once again reminds me how convenient it must be to be a middle-aged white man of average build. But I think what stands out the most about Hitman are how good its systems are, and how you can exploit different characters' relationships with each other or their patterns and desires in order to carry out really complex and fascinating kills. Mark Brown over at GMTK covered this topic best, I think, but basically it's suffice to say that Hitman was complex in all the right ways. Continuing my AAA backlog cleanup, after years of dragging my feet, I finally gave Titanfall 2 a chance. If you know me, or if you've watched my measly 4-hour-long video detailing my road to 100k gamer score, you would know that I was a beast at Titanfall 1. For 3 years, I played Titanfall every day after school, and after hundreds of hours, it became one of the few competitive shooters I really loved and was really quite good at. Getting into Titanfall 2 5 years after its launch, and now working full-time, I wasn't quite up for the intense online PvP experience anymore, but given the complete lack of one in the first game, I was very interested in the concept of Titanfall 2 having a story. And damn, did it deliver. Titanfall 2's campaign is probably the best gameplay and level design I've experienced in an FPS campaign mode, and every single level, after the first two, was an absolute treat. The bond between the player as Jack Cooper and BT was really special as well, and despite the relatively quick pace of the game, I find myself really growing attached to him. A lot of the actual writing in the campaign is pretty weak, and the entire plot, in quotes, can be boiled down to, the enemy made a big bomb and we need to destroy it before it destroys us, oh no! But I still had a lot of fun with the service experience, and it didn't matter that there was nothing deeper or retrospective going on. Besides, all the introspection and depth I craved in Titanfall 2's narrative was more than covered by the next game I played. Nier Automata, despite being a game revered for its depth and nuance, was one of those games that, right away did everything in its power to make me try to hate it. For starters, the first mission of the game has to be played start to finish with no saves, and dying even a single time forces you to reset the entire game, cutscenes and all. Beyond that, once you get past the intro and start playing the whole game, fast travels are few and far between, so the vast majority of your time just ends up getting spent running from point A to point B. Then finally, to arrive at the game's true ending, you need to do 3 separate playthroughs. Ugh, gross. But even so, I couldn't help but be enamored with the rich themes and philosophical ponderings posed in Nier Automata. While the presence of so many endings in other games serve merely as a way to keep you playing for longer, the branching paths in Nier Automata give you time to ponder your own understanding of life and technology, as well as the fate of humanity. The game's cutscenes, though surreal and confusing on first watch, also pose rather compelling questions about what matters more in a relationship, sincerity or empathy. I could go on, but the basic idea is that Nier Automata poses a lot of big ideas to its players, and the slow, atmospheric design of the game is intentionally manufactured to give you the space to think about those ideas, in between giant robot fights. And for that reason, it's a one-of-a-kind experience that I grew to love, somehow. Though Nier may have won my love, Baba Is You retains my eternal love-hate by being one of the most difficult goddamn puzzle games I have played in my entire life. The concept behind Baba is the idea that you can arrange different blocks of words to form conditional sentences, which allow you to manipulate yourself and your environment in ways which help you accomplish your task. Win. What starts out with really simple backwards thinking really quickly turns into some of the most mind-boggling shit you've ever seen in your life. Me and my friends are still playing it today, but at this point, every puzzle takes us an hour, and after doing about 3, we need a 2-week rest because our brains are literally melting. Even so, it's an exceptionally clever little game, even if brain is melt. Well, now that we've talked about these other lesser games, let's get back to what we're all here for. Yakuza, baby! If you're keeping track, next up in the series is Yakuza 4, which is definitely one of my favorites in a while. The biggest thing I respect about 4 is that they finally started to drift away from Kiryu as our main character, and instead introduced us to 4 protagonists: Akiyama, Saejima, Tanimura, and finally our main man Kiryu. This diverse cast gives the series just the kick it needed to ignite my interest and love again. Even if the main story going on in this game is a little confusing and convoluted. It was just so nice to see the ways the different characters interacted with the world and the problems that confronted them, even if Tanimura was consistently getting the most interesting ones. I had a great time with Yakuza 4, and I really hope the series continues its hype for the next game. Anyways, because I'm still FPS trash, the next game I played is Splitgate, the hot new Halo Portal mashup that is crashing servers and stealing hearts across the internet. I've already said most of what I want to say about it in my Smash or Pass video covering it, but essentially it's got really great gameplay but lacks a bit in the identity department. I've been falling out of playing the game recently, but I really hope to get back into it when the series expands and finds its footing. Next up, we have a spiritual successor to A Way Out. It Takes Two is Hazelight Studios' next great multiplayer game, which somehow manages to nail the experience even more than the first. Once again, the characters, acting, and story are all kind of laughably bad, but the gameplay and environmental design of this game is so goddamn good that the whole thing is a treat to explore and play through with your best friend or your partner. Besides the co-op element, the incorporation of a ton of head-to-head minigames also keeps a great spirit of competition alive throughout the game in a way that A Way Out lacks. This, I think, is one of the main pieces that contributes to making It Takes Two objectively being one of the best multiplayer experiences on the market right now. And with all the Game of the Year awards it's winning, clearly I'm not the only person who thinks that. Moving away from mindless fun to ultra seriousness, 12 Minutes is an insane game, with a cast that makes you go, what? And a plot that makes you go, what? And a gameplay loop that makes you go, hurry up. Holy shit, I'm so bored out of my mind. Can you please speed this up already? A wannabe Hollywood Oscar bait with way too much trial and error, 12 Minutes is a fun experience if and only if you know what you're doing. But stumbling your way to the end, trying to get the achievements or figuring things out on your own, makes it so even the hardest hitting moments get old really fast. Though I admire what they were trying to do here, so I admit the game still holds somewhat of a soft spot in my heart, you couldn't pay me enough money to play it again. Another fresh indie darling of 2021, Boyfriend Dungeon is the perfect halfway point between dating sim and dungeon crawler, a formula last year's Hades taught us works quite wonderfully. As you date your way through the bachelors of Verona Beach and clear its mysterious dungeons, you learn to face your fears and appreciate those around you. It's a pretty short and sweet experience compared to other games in its various genres, but I think it's really adorable, and that makes me excited to see what else Kit Fox Studios puts out next. Especially if that next thing is paparazzi, because holy fuck! Sticking to indies, the next game I played is Calico, a cute but kind of janky indie game about running a cat cafe in a magical town. The basic premise for this game is really cute, and I enjoyed everything they had me do in the game, from collecting animals for the cafe, to the quests, to decorating the cafe, to making food for all the animals. There were, however, a few small problems I had with it, one of which is that there's a lot of graphical errors and clipping issues I ran into, which happened distractingly often. Plus, as cute as this game was, it's really small, and it only took me about 4 hours to 100% it. It was a really cute experience, but I definitely would have liked to see a longer, more polished version of it. Speaking of unpolished games, this fall I finally got around to playing one of the most famous, bug-ridden AAA games to come out in recent months, Cyberpunk 2077. Because of all the bad press surrounding this game, I went in with really low expectations and was fully prepared to be underwhelmed by everything about it. But to my surprise, Cyberpunk was actually good? No, scratch that, it was great? Well, I definitely ran into a few of the performance errors people were raving about. They were pretty few and far between. Or, at the very least, funny.
Fucking sucker scums everywhere. Hey, I was listening to that.
Really? Because I wasn't. Instead, I was able to spend most of my time running around the cyberpunk wonderland that the devs left for us. And it is a wonderland. As someone who's a big fan of both the cyberpunk genre and RPGs, this game was practically made for me. And I had a really great time exploring this world, meeting all its characters, and just going along for the ride. Like all RPGs, there was definitely more filler than there should have been, but in between all the BS, there was quite a few really funny quests in there, and a lot of well-rounded characters I enjoyed getting to know intimately. I'd never call it a perfect game, but it was a game that worked for me. And honestly, my favorite game I played in 2021. Haha, don't judge me. Anyway, moving on. The next game I tried was Superliminal, a game with probably the coolest and most original concepts of all the games I played this year. The entire premise of the game is using optical illusions to manipulate objects and solve puzzles in your environment. It's a really cool and really trippy concept, and it's probably the most creative game I played this year. Personally, I couldn't finish this one because it got a little too obtuse for me as chapters went on, and also scary, but I definitely say it's worth trying out. continuing on my indie game bullshit, the next game I played was Unpacking, a game where you know, unpack. Okay, listen, like Wilmont's Warehouse, the concept for this game sounds pretty lame, I know. There's just something so satisfying about finding a good place for everything and organizing things just to your liking. Plus, this game has some really creative storytelling, where you as the player are encouraged to piece together what's happening in this person's life based on the items you put around their home. Without any dialogue or characters at all, there manages to be some really strong ups and downs in the story, and an ending that feels satisfying based on everything you've learned about this main character and her life. It's really a 10 out of 10 comfy game, and if you're a cozy gamer, I really and truly recommend it. Alright, but enough with the original IPs. Move over, Buster, we got a sequel coming through. Deltarune Chapter 2 came out this year. Holy shit, and it was great, holy shit, ha! Like everyone, I enjoyed Deltarune Chapter 1 because Toby Fox made it, and everything Toby Fox touches turns to gold. But I think Chapter 2 is a huge improvement, and a great forward step for the game. The tone is a lot lighter in this one, and all of the new characters are really funny and make for some really good additions to the main cast. And overall, I think there was less teen angst drama and more just having a good time, which I really appreciated. My favorite addition was definitely the Queen. I think she's just a fantastic villain and a hilarious addition to the series. But overall, after playing this chapter, I'm a lot more excited for what the rest of Deltarune has to offer. And I'm excited for the release of the main game. Whenever that is. The last game of note I played this year, and actually finished, was Call of the Sea, an indie game my friend Matthias recommended I check out. I went in with pretty low expectations, especially because a lot of indie puzzle games just tend to bore the shit out of me and make me want to rush through to the end. But I actually really enjoyed Call of the Sea. There was some really strong environmental storytelling in here, and puzzles I actually understood and was able to figure out with my huge gamer brain. I wasn't expecting it at all, but this was actually one of the better written games I played all year, and I really enjoyed my time with it. And wow, that's it? Already? Damn. Overall, it was a pretty small year for gaming for me. I only ended up playing like 26 different games, a few of which went unmentioned here, if you're keeping count. But even so, I had a lot of fun with them. If I had to do a top 5 for like recommendations, I'd probably recommend Nier Automata, My Friend Pedro, Wilmont's Warehouse, It Takes Two, and Cyberpunk 2077. But you heard my mini reviews, so make your own judgment. Anyway, that's all from me. This was my first time doing something like this, so I think I still have a lot to learn, but I really like looking back at what I did this year, and I hope you all did too. And again, this is Fyre, signing out.